Jodi-Picoult is an author known for tackling controversial topics, transforming them into page-turning fiction. And that remains the case for her latest novel, A Spark of Light. It involves a hostage situation taking place in an abortion clinic. Jodi-Picoult sat down with us earlier to talk about it. So, Jodi, you start this book at 5 o'clock in the evening, and then you work backward in hour increments. It is a hostage situation. It is tense, but it's unraveling in reverse. Why did you choose to tell the story this way?
I think this is a story about how things are conceived, not just babies, but also how we form our opinions. You know, is it at the knees of our parents, our pastor, our friends? Is it our own experience? And by unraveling backward and really unpeeling the onions of each of the 10 characters that you're following, what you learn at the end is what brought them all to this clinic at this moment on this day, where there's a gunman who comes in with a grudge and starts shooting.
You write about these topics that take beliefs that people feel passionately about, and you force us to press into them a little bit, apply a bit of reality to what we feel is a belief system or a theory.
Right.
Is this something that evolved for you, or is this always what you wanted to write?
I think it's definitely something that evolved for me. As a writer, you know, I was always told, write what you know. I have a very boring life. I had a great childhood, and I think instead I decided I was going to write what I was willing to learn. And what I do love about fiction is that often someone who won't approach a topic through the news or nonfiction will pick up a book thinking, I'm going to be entertained. And if I do my job, then you are left thinking about a very controversial, idea long after you close the book.
You say that you like to learn, and you can tell that by the research that you do into some of your stories. When you were here last time, this was for Small Great Things.
Yes.
And you researched this idea of sort of white privilege and how we talk about it in society today. You spoke with former skinheads. You spoke with members from the Black community.
Yep.
You did a lot of research on that book, and this one is no exception. You spoke with hostage negotiators, more than 150 women who had terminated pregnancies, and you even observed some abortions.
Yes.
Why did you want to do that?
I think it's really important to, first of all, to make sure that you see the wide range of opinions on a controversial topic. The other thing I did for research was talk to those who identify as pro-life, because it was really important for me to get that point of view into the book as well as all the people who are pro-choice. In terms of going to shadow a provider who performs abortions, that was really critical. Not only could I see the women who are literally making the decision in front of my eyes, but also see what we are talking about when we talk about a 5-week abortion, an 8-week abortion, a 15-week abortion. You're talking about something that takes between 3 and 7 minutes. And, especially for an early abortion, what you see in products of conception is really nothing that would give you any pause. It was really critical for me to be there and to be with him and to see how he helps women understand that this moment is just another moment in their lives, not the high water mark that they're always going to be judging themselves against. And that's really critical, because of the 151 women I interviewed, what was most evident to me was how the stigma is still being visited upon them decades after they had a termination. They still haven't told their parents, their partners, their friends. They've hidden this, and less than 25 wanted to be acknowledged in my book because of that. That broke my heart, and I think when women don't tell their stories, other people create a narrative for them, and it's usually one of shame.
You write, honestly, I don't believe we as a society will ever agree on this issue. The stakes are too high. Both sides operate from places of unshakable belief.
Yes.
But I do think that the first step is to talk to each other, and more importantly, to listen.
Right.
What do you hope, what kind of conversations are you hoping come from this book?
What I really hope comes out of this book is that women who may have terminated a pregnancy, keep in mind it's 1 out of 4 women in the world who will do this over the course of their lifetime. I hope that they will feel the strength to confide in someone, because I think that when you hear that the people who are getting abortions are not faceless, nameless, selfish women, but your neighbor, your sister, your teacher, your friend, all of a sudden it changes your perception of who has to make this very difficult decision. I also think it's really important that we do reach across the aisle and we talk to the people who are different from us, but instead of lecturing at them, we listen to what they have to say. Very often we don't do that. We don't hear what the other side thinks, and that is critical, because they do come from a place of deep conviction and deep compassion, just like you do. They just might believe something that isn't what you believe.
An interesting character that you followed around was a Christian doctor named Dr. Willie Parker, who also performs abortions.
Yes.
So What can you tell me about him, how he manages this issue of faith around the issue of abortion?
So he's a devout Christian, and he went to a sermon in church and heard the Good Samaritan parable and thought, who is going to provide for these women if not me? And he went back and got trained in performing abortions. He was an OBGYN, and he now flies to the most underserved areas in the United States doing that for women. He is probably the biggest feminist I have ever met. And one of the things that I love about him is that he really recognizes the fact that even if you do not believe that life begins at conception, you can't talk about abortion in terms of euphemisms. You have to recognize you are interrupting a life process, and you still have to find and understand why that is still an important choice for women to have.
The Washington Post called you the queen of the ethical dilemma. Do you feel like that suits you?
Well, no one's given me a tiara yet, so I don't know.
You definitely always challenge us with your writing. You delve into some hot button topics that, as you say, people may not want to look at in a newspaper, but they will read in a story. Thanks so much for being on Your Mind.
Thanks for having me.